I haven't thought about this in years, and I don't know what made me remember this repressed memory of mine, but here we go. As a 15-year-old girl who wasn't the shiniest coin in the jar, I very much craved the attention of guys. I didn't date at all until I went to college. No guys at my school really showed any interest in me. The ones that I thought might never made a move either. So I found the Whisper app. On the Whisper app, you can anonymously post your thoughts and feelings where basically anyone around the world can see, as well as people who are only a couple miles away. In fact, there's actually a separate tab to look at Whisper from your area. You can heart people's posts, reply to them, or direct chat with the person. You can choose what info about yourself is available to be seen when someone decides to direct message you, such as age and gender. I chose not to make that information public. I don't remember what I posted, but someone had DM'd me. Their info didn't say much either, besides their gender. I was obviously very naive and assumed that it was a guy my age who wanted to talk to me, because the words he chose and how his messages were written made him seem a lot younger. He asked some questions about me, like how old I was, my interests, what I did for work. I answered those questions, and he asked also to see a picture of me. I sent him a picture. He told me how beautiful I was and how I was out of his league. He would dodge questions about himself. He would say that he was boring and that he just wanted to talk about me. I eventually managed to get him to send a picture of himself. You guessed it, mid-40s man. I was surprised he sent an honest picture of himself, but at this point I very understandably freaked out. He then started asking to take me out to dinner. I stopped talking to him at that point, but he kept trying and saying stuff like, "I'll take you somewhere really nice, I'll throw in a massage, winky face." I figured out you could block people, so that's what I did, and I didn't really think much of it after that. I basically forgot about the conversation after I fell asleep that night. A couple weeks later, I was at work and it was slammed. The checkout line was starting to wrap around the small store that I worked at. There was only one line, but 2 checkout registers at the counter at my work. I had just finished checking out a large order, and I kind of just looked up to see how bad the line was, and if it seemed like it was going to calm down anytime soon. That's when I made eye contact with a familiar face. I couldn't quite place it at first, and then the man smiled and silently mouthed, "Hi, OP." The image he sent me in the chat immediately flashed into my mind. I felt my stomach drop and my heart race. I was absolutely terrified and really did not want to check this guy out. So I made sure to check out people way slower than I normally do. My coworker checked him out, but I could feel him staring at me. He even tried to wave me goodbye as he left, and I refused to even slightly turn my head in his direction. As soon as it calmed down in the store, I went to the bathroom and had a huge panic attack where I nearly threw up. When my mom came to pick me up from work, I very closely watched the side mirror to make sure we weren't being followed by anyone. After that day, I stopped answering direct messages if it wasn't someone who wanted to have an actual conversation about something I posted. Long story short, monitor your child's online activity. They may hate you for it at the time, but trust me, they need supervision. This happened when I was about 6 or 7, so around 2003. It had been the 4th of July, and my family and I were hanging out watching fireworks, barbecuing, and all that fun stuff. Now, at the time, I had a retainer that was glued to the roof of my mouth because my teeth were becoming crowded and gave me really bad headaches. Anyways, my aunt had returned from the store to pick up hamburgers or something, and had brought back a bunch of candy for us kids. Except all the candy were gummy candies, And when you have a retainer like I did, you aren't supposed to eat anything like that because it could dislodge it. Being 7, I was pretty bummed because I was missing out on all the candy. My aunt noticed my sadness over the candy, gave me a little wink, and said that 1 or 2 couldn't hurt, and that she wouldn't tell my mom. Well, 1 or 2 turned into around 10, and I'm sure you can all guess what happened. Part of my retainer had dislodged. So I had this metal thing hanging in my mouth, and obviously I couldn't put my teeth together, and it hurt. I didn't say anything about it for a while because I didn't want my mom to yell at me, and I also didn't want to get my aunt in trouble either. So dinner time rolls around, and I'm not eating, since I have an awkward piece of metal hanging in my mouth and couldn't chew. My mom tells me I need to eat my dinner, and I guess the look on my face gave me away. "What's wrong?" she asked. My 7-year-old brain was searching for any excuse, but I had nothing. I just opened my mouth and pointed inside. She was not happy. My aunt stepped in and told my mom that she allowed me to have some candy and that it was her fault. My mother ignored her and was looking me straight in the eyes and told me, "You know better. Well, we can't get this fixed until morning, so since you decided to make the wrong choice, you're going to have to deal with it until then." It was probably 8 p.m. and the 4th of July, so there weren't any dentists open anywhere. It's now the next day, and my regular dentist didn't have an open appointment until the day after, so my mom booked one somewhere we had never been before. Enter Dr. Valentine. Now, I want to note that I had never had any trouble with dentists before. I was a rather shy kid, and I didn't like causing a fuss. Dr. Valentine asked my mom if he could give me sleeping gas, or whatever it's called. She politely declined and told him I was fine. I remember her specifically saying, "Just tell her what you're doing, she's good with the dentists." He did not follow those instructions, though. My mom had gone to use the restroom, and his hygienist, who had been in the room after my mom told them no gas, quickly put a mask over my face. My mom came back in and she was pissed that they ignored her. From what I could tell, she moved on from it and the appointment continued. I assume what he was going to do was give me a numbing shot in my gums so he could go to work on my teeth, but he was being weird. I had not gone out from the gas, but I was groggy. He comes over kind of smiling and told me to watch the cartoons that were playing on the TV that was attached to the ceiling, but I was aware enough to notice he was holding something behind his back. I did not watch the cartoons, and I'm just wondering what in the world is going on. He pulls this needle out from behind his back. At that age, it looked like a huge sword, more than a needle, and goes to give me the shot. I just simply asked, "What is that?" because he hadn't mentioned he was going to give me a shot. In that moment, his hygienist lays on top of me. I hadn't been in pain, and I hadn't been anything but a good kid. I had only asked, "What is that?" And then Dr. Valentine tries to forcefully give me this shot. I was confused by this lady that was holding me down, and my mouth wasn't open enough for him to administer it. My mom freaks out at this point. "Get off of her, I told you just to tell her what you're doing." Seeing my mom react that way scared the hell out of me, and I started bawling. So what does he do after that? He tries to give me more gas. My mom said absolutely not, and she had already told him no. Apparently he gave up on numbing me since everyone reacted badly to a lady holding me down and him trying to force a needle in my mouth. Weird that someone wouldn't like that, huh? I want to remind you, there is no reason for any of what happened. I was not doing anything besides sitting there. He fixed my recliner, and my mom talked to the person who was working the front desk and told her what had happened, and it was quickly dismissed. She paid, and needless to say, we never went back, so thank you, Dr. Valentine DDS. I get crazy anxiety going to the dentist now, and actually have to take Valium. You are 1 in a million. I have only had good experiences going to the dentist since then, but I still get really nervous that someone's going to jump on top of me. We visited New York a few years back. We stayed in a cheap yet nice Airbnb with 5-star reviews. The catch? It was far from Midtown Manhattan, towards the end of Wakefield. This wasn't our first time, so we weren't that spooked. I mean, we stayed in Harlem and New Jersey before, and we didn't encounter anything weird, in spite of their bad reputations. As a tourist, we always try to return to our apartment before 9 p.m. But that night, we got a little lost. We reached the station and boarded the Wakefield train past 9 p.m., Sunday nights, so trains weren't that packed. We settled in the corner right beside a wall. Midway, a shirtless guy covered with blood enters the train. There were empty seats, but he just stood in the middle near the metal pole. He seemed intoxicated and couldn't stand up straight and was swaying a bit, and there was blood dripping from his fingers. He had cuts and bruises, but no visible stab wounds or anything like that. It made us wonder where the blood was coming from. One guy asked him if he needed help, and the guy answered in an angsty tone, "Why do you care?" We were hesitant to leave the train, unsure if there would be another Wakefield train. Also, stations in that area look sketchy at night. Imagine open-air stations with chilly weather. Either we die of hypothermia, or we get robbed. So we decided to stay, scared to trigger the man further. We kept our head down and avoided any eye contact. We were 5 stations away at that point. Imagine the anxiety we felt whenever a passenger left the train. Fortunately, we reached our station safely. We almost ran to our apartment and vowed not to stay out late ever again. I reported the incident to the MTA via their Facebook page, and they told us the guy just left the train in peace. This happened 3 years ago, when I was 21. I was walking home from the train station. As I was arriving to my house, I noticed this guy standing a house down on the other side of the street, standing behind some cars. He looked like your typical junkie straight out of Breaking Bad. He was wearing a hoodie and a beanie, and it was the middle of a heat wave in the Australian Sydney summer, which would be 40+ Celsius. Anyway, I was living with 2 housemates at the time, a 6'2" Italian guy who was 26 and a short lady who was 24. I'm 6'1", and at the time I was 21 years old. I arrive home, and a few minutes passed. I hear knocking on the door directly outside my window, and because I just got home, I didn't really feel like answering it. So I waited a bit, and the knocking persisted. "I guess I gotta answer it," I said as I opened my bedroom door. I saw my Italian roommate just outside my room on his way to go answer the door. So we decided to open it together, and as soon as we opened the door, we could see this guy. There was a flash of silver as he quickly put something into the pocket of his hoodie, and he suddenly became nervous. His eyes were bugging out of his head. He was a far shorter guy than either of us, and very, very skinny. He asked if some person's name lived there. We said no, as we'd never heard of this person. He just wishes us a good day and he leaves. We close the door and I say, "Did you see what he put in his pocket?" And my roommate says, "Yeah, the knife," and essentially confirmed what I was thinking. He left in a huge hurry, so either he was actually looking for the person he asked about and was thinking about hurting them, or he saw 2 significantly bigger guys answer the door at once and realized it was a bad idea. This story happened when I was a little kid in Trinidad. I'm not precisely sure of how old I was, but thinking about the car we had and the uniform I was wearing at the time, I was in the 6 to 8 years old age range. I'm 33 now, so this would have been in the early 90s. My parents had picked me up from school and were picking my sister up from her school. This was a daily occurrence, and most of the time it took a couple of minutes to get her and come back to the car. Most of the time, I just sat in the car by myself listening to the radio. This day, however, they were taking longer than usual. I started to get bored and was looking outside the windows when I saw a man walking down the street. This is the strangest part of the story. Something about him creeped me out, even before I could see him clearly. I wasn't a particularly fearful child when it came to strangers, and he didn't look scary at all. But every instinct in my little kid brain screamed at me to lock the car doors, so I did. As he came closer to the car, he saw that I was in there and he started talking to me. And then he started telling me to get out of the car and go with him. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I was so scared. Then, he tried to open the car doors. When he realized that the doors were locked, he backed up a little and started asking me to open the car door again. As he was doing this, my parents and sister came out of the school. My dad asked him what he was doing. He gave some generic answer and just walked off. To this day, I don't know what about him gave me that strong reaction I had, but I am so thankful for it. And that one experience taught me the importance of listening to my instincts. This happened to me about 15 or 16 years ago when I was displaced in Las Vegas after Hurricane Katrina occurred. I was 9 years old at the time, and I lived in this cul-de-sac of townhomes. Without sharing all the details, this was the first time I'd ever had a friend who lived in my neighborhood, so he and I would often hang out from the early mornings to about 11 p.m. or so. One night, I can't remember how late it was, but it was pretty dark outside. While we were hanging out, there was this ice cream truck that was passing around. It hadn't turned on the typical music you hear when a truck approaches, but when I got near, it began to light up and play the music. My friend and I, whom was the same age as myself, 9 years old, approached the truck to see what it had to offer. I decided I didn't want any ice cream, likely because I didn't have any money to buy any. But my friend wanted some. He explained what he wanted to the guy, and when the guy suggested that he should get in the truck and pick out which flavor, and then he would give him the ice cream for free. For some strange reason, my friend was actually about to get into the truck when I yanked his arm and screamed something. Immediately after, we ran to our parents and explained to them what happened. After this, we'd have to be inside by the time the sun set. I can't say for sure what would have occurred, but I'm thankful neither of us got into that truck. I can definitely credit my parents for that instinctive reaction in this situation. They always stressed not to trust strangers, and all the terrible things that could happen if you did. Well, I guess instilling fear worked in my case. Hey there, friends. I hope you all enjoyed this fantastic collection of creepy encounter stories. A huge thank you to the Redditors for letting me use their stories, and a huge thank you to all the people that listened to this video. I love each and every one of you guys. Hope you know that. If you did like this and would like more content that's kind of like it, or content that's so vastly different, it's like comparing outlets to mouse pads, please consider joining the Nevermore. To join the Nevermore, all you gotta do is hit that subscribe button, the bell icon next to it. You can also support the Nevermore by clicking on any of the links down in the description of this video. You'll notice my description changed a bit. That's because I wanted to add all the links individually. All that said, friends, I hope you have a fantastic day and a lovely weekend. I hope the weather's nice. It's been kind of hot here, but, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. Chin up. Have a good day. I love you guys. See you in the next video. But until then, sleep well.